Hi, my name's Brianna Burnett, and I'll be doing my presentation on the genetics of Alzheimer's disease. So, for a basic overview of what Alzheimer's disease is, I've made out three main points that I think were the best at explaining it in a short summary. So, it's a progressive brain disorder that affects 5.8 million Americans from 65 and older. It can't be reversed. It slowly kills neurons in the human brain, and patients lose their memory, thought process, and they start to forget how to do normal tasks. So for the memory loss portion, things that used to be easy for them start to become really difficult. They start forgetting small things, and then it turns into bigger things. And that ranges from the mild to more severe patients. But they'll start to forget, how to swallow, eat, breathe, who their loved ones are, and in the worst cases, even who they are. So, as we all know, taking this class, that genes affect everything we do. And they affect things from our hair color, our eye color, what diseases a person will develop, and even what someone ends up looking like. And what I mean by what a person looks like is whether someone ends up being tall, short, what color of hair they have, how just all of their characteristics, genes will affect that. Some facts about Alzheimer's is that Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. And what dementia is that is a term that's used for disorders that cause abnormal brain activity. Alzheimer's disease impairs the human brain, and this is what causes the person affected by it to mentally age rapidly. And impairment of the brain leads to early dementia. So, Alzheimer's affects the brain by killing the neurons in the brain, and then that kills the connections that they had in the brain. And the connection it kills are the hippocampus and the internal cortex. And both of these are associated with memory. So memory loss is actually the biggest indicator that Alzheimer's disease is developing in a person's brain. And the giveaways for that is that people begin to forget, small aspects of their lives, such as who people are, what they're doing, and in worst cases, they can forget how to eat, swallow, and even breathe. Daily activities that are affected is one of the biggest things that I think is sad to watch happen, because an Alzheimer's patient will forget how to drive, they'll forget, how to get to the grocery store or what they even want from the store. And seeing people that were once familiar to them, like an old friend, in the more moderate to severe cases, they will, forget who they are. And I think this is the most devastating part, is when Alzheimer's patients cannot remember their loved ones. And I've seen this firsthand from my own family when they forget who their own children are and their grandkids. And, everybody tries to laugh it off to lighten the situation, but deep down that hurts. And I think that's truly devastating to see happen. So there are 3 stages of Alzheimer's disease, and that ranges from mild, moderate, and severe. Mild being the more simpler side of just forgetting something small and kind of meaningless, and severe being forgetting how to breathe, eat, swallow, and the more dangerous things. So Alzheimer's disease is a genetically developed disorder, and APOE is actually the most common form of gene that's been associated with Alzheimer's disease. And elaborating more onto this gene, it has 3 different types. It has E2, which is the lowest risk factor of Alzheimer's. And then it has E3. This is the most common type, and it has little to no effect. So it's not so bad. And then the last one is APOE4. This is the highest risk, and it's the most dangerous type to be associated with this disease. APOE-E4 makes a person's chances of developing Alzheimer's disease very, very high. This gene has actually been found in roughly 40 to 65% of people who have developed Alzheimer's disease. And people with a single copy of this are super high risk of developing this disease. And that's what I think is the scariest part, is that it's just one copy. And they only need it from one parent. And that, to me, that's horrifying. E4 is actually very high risk for developing late onset Alzheimer's. So there's this thing called deterministic genes, and it's more rare that people have these genes. And basically what this means is that they have automatically developed the disease, and anyone who is in this family with those genes will have the disorder. So research suggests that there are 2 specific genes that are linked to Alzheimer's disease. And basically for the first one, when there is a cellular repair and how it reacts to being damaged, that connects with the first gene. And then for the second gene, it's when genes start to regulate AP reproduction. And genetics affect everyone, and people who inherit genes from their families, especially genes that cause Alzheimer's. So amyloid B protein has been found to be a part of the cause of Alzheimer's disease. It's a really common factor, and it's been found in a lot of the early stages of Alzheimer's, which is what makes scientists and researchers think this is such a big problem. And it's also been associated with the cause of memory loss. So this is what I think plays the biggest role in the genetics of Alzheimer's disease, is family history. People who have a family history of Alzheimer's and dementia in their families are obviously very more high risk than someone who had absolutely none of that in their family. And genetic data shows mutations in people's genes. And this includes these genes that I've listed down here. And these genes are what's bad, is that they're extremely high risk, and they're found in all of the families that were affected by Alzheimer's disease. So people that have inherited the gene APP, they have the gene that was first found in 1987 that was linked to genetically inheriting Alzheimer's disease. So here I have a specific list of genes on these next few slides that have actually been found more commonly than any other gene in Alzheimer's disease. So starting off with ABCA7, this one's super high risk for developing the disease, and the role this gene has is how the body uses cholesterol. And then the gene CLU has a disproportionate amount of the manufacture of amyloid beta, and what amyloid beta has to do with this is it's been linked to Alzheimer's disease. The gene CR1 has been involved with inflammatory complications in the brain. Inflammation in the brain is linked to developing Alzheimer's disease, and that's why that one is so important, because that's a direct link. So next I have some other ones, and these genes weren't necessarily directly linked to it. I mean, they were, but the researchers couldn't find the actual cause. They just knew it had to do with nerve cells, inflammation, and chromosomes. And TREM2 was previously stated on that last slide, in that one where they didn't really know so much about it. And it's a transmembrane glycoprotein. And when you put TREM2 together with DAP12, it sets off an activation response for immune cells, and this has been associated with inflammatory responses, which previously stated was super big for linking things to Alzheimer's disease. And genetic testing is super important because it lets scientists and researchers get to better understand what's going on with this disease. They get to learn how it's developed and passed on to other family members. And scientists get to learn what leads to neurodegeneration and what the symptoms are of Alzheimer's disease. And genetic testing is recommended to determine how much of a risk there is for future family members, and patients get to see what kind of risk they have in order of developing Alzheimer's. And once a patient is done getting their testing done, they get to learn what their genetic traits are that cause them to develop the disease. With genetic testing, patients get to learn about the symptoms also of early Alzheimer's. And by learning about these early symptoms, they get to prepare themselves for it. And, the news is always going to be kind of devastating and negative to a lot of people. So, with that being said, clinics offer counseling and therapy for patients after they learn what they have in order to help them cope and to try and, make a little bit of light of the situation. So treatment isn't really that common. There's only 2 kinds of treatment at the moment, which is medical treatments. And they have medicine for patients who have severe to mild symptoms. And then there's another kind of treatment that was designed to help patients with memory loss to help stabilize them. So overall, genetics affect our everyday life, especially inheriting diseases. And there's still no exact answer for what genetically causes Alzheimer's to develop. I think it's a super devastating disease and it makes life torture. But looking on the brighter side of things, science is advancing every day to find better treatments and have a better understanding. That's all I got. This is my reference page. I use this for all my slides, and I hope you enjoyed it.